Is that the official start?
That's the technique to start the show, people. All right, here we go. We got this. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it, Mel.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mel B/V.
I don't know what my name is.
Melly V.
Yeah, you can call me whatever
We're calling
you want.
Melly V.
Melly V.
Oh, we got lots to talk about. Okay, let's get this going.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly appreciate it. And we have a lot of questions. There's been a lot going on in your life.
Oh, God. Here we go.
I know.
This is how it's gonna start.
No. No, I like talking about myself, so let's.
Who doesn't?
I know.
Really?
It's my favorite topic.
I like this. So, I guess for everybody listening, let's start with the backstory. Who's Mel? What's she about? Born and raised?
That's a huge question.
I know.
It's a big one.
Like, I don't think you want me to answer that first.
No?
I'll give like a bio.
Yeah, let's do that.
To answer who Mel is and what she's about, that's not really going to. I'm going to start talking about other shit. You know what I mean?
Shit's gonna get out of hand.
Yeah.
We're gonna unpack that.
I mean, my name is Mellissa Valliere, technically. Born Mellissa Bumstead. I grew up in Ottawa, Canada. And I mean, I came across Mike when I was competing, right?
Yeah.
And you were doing photography.
Yeah.
And you must have reached out to Ian first.
Ian had spoke to, he was training with Freddie at the time.
Oh, and Freddie
And
connected
Freddie
you.
connected.
Okay,
Freddie
so
knew me.
my husband is
Yeah.
Ian Valliere. He's a professional bodybuilder. My brother is Chris Bumstead. He's also a professional bodybuilder. Now famous for many other things. But I met Mike through Ian, who was training with Freddie at New Body, and you came and did photo shoots for us when we were getting ready for, I think it was Vancouver Pro,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you were shooting us, and it kind of just became a fast friendship because we would drive together to the gym. You were spending hours with us, just like.
Well, and then we found out that we were neighbors.
Yeah.
Through all of that, it was, oh, we'll come pick you up.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Down the street.
8 houses away.
Literally
Oh,
down
okay.
the street.
Yeah. So definitely.
And then, kind of life has happened.
Yada yada yada.
Wow. It's actually
Life has happened, hasn't it?
well, you know what? It's actually amazing to think of in a short period of time, if you think of life, the changes. I mean, it's
pretty fucked up, to be honest,
Yeah.
how fast things have happened for, I mean, myself, but also
Yeah.
my family. Yeah.
I mean, it went from, I think it was fair to say, you could go and you could sit out at a restaurant and, I don't want to say be bothered, but be anonymous.
I mean, I feel like when I first started competing, I feel like I would get recognized, but it was like super niche. So it was really just people in Ottawa that were bodybuilders. So they were like, oh, I know you because you're a bodybuilder, your boyfriend, fiance at the time, whatever, is a bodybuilder, and your brother's a bodybuilder. And it was just like this kind of random collection of people that did the exact same thing, which is very uncommon because bodybuilding is not necessarily like the most popular thing to do. And to have 3 people in the same family become so successful, I think it became, especially within like Ottawa local, it became interesting. And that's probably how like it started in terms of becoming a name, I guess. And then Instagram and fitness community being like huge on social media. And we kind of just rode the wave and
Yeah. So rewind just a little. You met Ian when you were both teenagers.
yeah, we
So-
were 21.
It was 21. Okay.
We were
so
20.
I was thinking
Actually,
19.
honestly, we did go to high school together.
no way.
Yeah, so we started grade 9 at Earl of March High School in Canada, but we never spoke. He was
Interesting.
he was very popular, and I was not. Let's just say.
I don't believe it for a second.
It's very true. And I'm sure people that went to high school with us watching this will probably attest to that. But we were just very different people. Different. We never had a class together. We didn't really have mutual friends. We never spoke. He had a girlfriend the whole time. I had a boyfriend the whole time in high school. And I think when I was 21, I got out of like a very toxic relationship. And my best friend introduced me to Ian because she was very close with him. And the
rest is history.
Yeah, we fell in love very quickly. It's like so cheesy and cliche to say that when people are like, I knew immediately. But like we met in September. And I still remember we used to go to Crazy Horse a lot. Like that was our spot. Like
That's the spot.
twice a week, every week, you know, we were there. And I still remember it was Christmas break. So it was like mid-December. We had known each other for 3 months maybe. And everyone from high school was back. And they were like, I can't believe that you, like Mellissa Bumstead and Ian Valliere are dating. Like that's so random. And I just remember walking around the bar and people were like, this is so weird. I'm like, it's not weird. I'm going to marry him. And I was just like, I was so confident. Yeah. And like the relationship has honestly been that stable and that confident since probably 2 weeks after meeting each other. So
awesome.
We're very lucky.
You just know when you know.
Yeah, it wasn't, it wasn't like dramatic. It wasn't like, oh, does he like me? Does she like me? It was just like.
There was the spark, the connection, right?
It was a very deep connection. Yeah, it felt like we had known each other before, to be honest.
Did you notice Ian in high school? And by saying notice, like
was I like, ooh, he's hot?
Well, like, sorry to the guy you were dating, but let's be honest, were you?
No, I didn't.
Kind of smitten for him?
I thought his girlfriend was really hot. I did.
There you go.
Isn't that a girl thing, eh?
Yeah.
I noticed the girl more than the guy.
100%. 100%. Very common female thing. I remember thinking that they were like an attractive couple, but Ian's not honestly physically, especially at that age. He's I honestly liked. I don't even know how to say it. I liked black guys when I was younger. I did. Like that's what I was attracted to when I was younger.
And he most definitely did not fit that mold.
No. And even honestly, even white guys, it would be like darker skin, darker hair, darker eyes. That's just what I was physically attracted to. So no, I did not. I thought his girlfriend was very hot, and I remember being like, "Oh, they're so cool and popular, and they're so like they love each other." But no, he wasn't at all my type. It was I had to meet him and feel his energy, and then there was an immediate intense attraction. But it wasn't about the physical, it was all about the energy.
Awesome.
And obviously since then, physically, a lot has changed for him.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who knew Ian at 17, he was jacked, but he was 17 and he was small, like not small, but
he was muscular, but he's not a naturally big dude. You know,
No.
like my brother at 17, like big dude. Like you would be like, oh, that's definitely not a 17-year-old. But Ian at 17, he was sub 200 pounds. It was like not necessarily a super big guy. Yeah.
But all of us were at some point sub 200 pounds.
I mean, my brother, Christopher wasn't like, as soon as Christopher turned like 16, he was like 210 pounds of muscle. Like
he's a freak.
He is a freak.
Yeah,
for sure.
So high school finishes, you guys connect, that whole love at first sight. And it's been a whirlwind ever since. I mean, pretty much from day one, the two of you have been on this wild epic adventure of, and I can speak from what I see firsthand is that the support system between the two of you is remarkable. I mean, it's, you have to commend the two of you for supporting one another through everything. And it's always, from what I've always seen, it's always been like that. You guys are always like that. And what do you think brings that? What the confidence that you have in each other?
I think it's different when you meet someone not even at the beginning of the journey, but before the journey's even started. So when I met him, he wasn't like, he had bodybuilded, but he was no longer doing it. He had just broken his arm. He had kind of been like this is like enough for me. I need to like make money, be an adult, whatever. And then we had been together for probably 6 months maybe. And that's when he still talked about bodybuilding like it was his passion. And I was like, you have to do this again. And he was like, yeah, I'll do the local show in Ottawa. It was in like November, I think. And I was like, yeah, do it. Like, it's going to be so great. And I knew nothing about bodybuilding. I knew nothing about training or dieting or nothing. And he is the most attentive, affectionate, loving man. And as soon as he started prepping for that show, I swear to God, like he became a robot. I was like, and I'm only 22 at this point, so I'm not really I'm not secure. I'm very insecure. My past boyfriend, I had been with him for 6 years. He had cheated on me for all 6 of those years. Like, it's just, I didn't have the sense of self for that part of my relationship to go away and for me to still be like, it's okay, he loves me. And we had only been together for 6 months. So we struggled a lot during his first prep. Like, I remember just being like, what are you doing? You don't like me anymore. Like, you don't want to have sex with me. Like, whatever happens when like he goes into this psycho focus, intense, like human of an athlete. And that's all at that point in his life, that's the only way he knew how to be successful at bodybuilding. Was literally shutting off everything else in his life, like his feelings for his wife or for his girlfriend, him like really caring about, he worked at Popeyes at the time. He kind of would just like, he was going through motions, and then everything else in terms of dieting and training, it was 100% of the energy was dedicated to that.
During that process, did you find yourself, that's when you became interested in bodybuilding yourself?
No.
It wasn't that?
I hated it. I hated everything about bodybuilding during that prep. It was taking away this person that I was like falling so deep in love with. And I was taking it personally. I was like, oh, the honeymoon phase is over. He just doesn't like me as much anymore. I didn't understand. Like I couldn't wrap my head around this extensive change in behavior. It didn't make any sense to me. And he kept explaining it to me. He was like, this happened to me the last time I did a show. I promise you, like, just like it was, I think he was only prepping for 12 weeks. And it was really only the last 8 weeks where it was like super intense. And he kept just telling me like, stay around, like I'll come back, like whatever. And I just like, I remember one night we were like lying in bed and he was just like lying there, like not even like caring if I was there or not. I'm like, why am I even here? He's like, I don't know how to explain it. I want you around, but I don't have any energy to do anything, to talk to you or to like hug you or to give you any sort of affection or validation, but I still want you here. And I was like, what's the point of me? Like, no. And I left. Like, I just walked out. I was crying. And I think like 10 minutes, I'm walking down the street to my best friend's house because she lived down the street from him. And my phone rings and it's Ian's buddy, Mike. And Mike's like, Ian just called me. He's freaking out. Like, trust me. Just like, wait. I think he was like 2 weeks out at this point. He was like, just wait. And I decided to wait. And literally, probably the night of Ian's show, he did a show and it was amazing. He won. He was competing against grown men and he made everyone look like a child. Like it looked like he was Ronnie Coleman on the stage. You know what I mean? It was like, I remember being like, oh shit. Like this man is meant to do this.
Yeah.
But after that show, he literally, it was what he said. He came back. He was like so affectionate. He was like himself again. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't deal with this like change in behavior and stay secure and be okay. And he was kind of saying like, well, then I'm not going to compete ever again because I can't lose you. And our solution was for me to do it with him, for me to do his next show. He was doing provincials in June. So I was like, I will try it with you.
Wow,
There's more
beautiful.
there's more to it. Like
Yeah,
I had obviously started to train with him, and I was getting crazy results, and I was being driven by my body changing and how strong I was feeling. Nicole Wilkins won the Olympia that year, and I thought she was stunning. I wanted to look like her, and all of that combined kind of made me decide to do my first show alongside Ian. And Christopher too wanted to compete, but Christopher's a different story because he was more like, I would say Ian and Christopher were like born to do this. I was more just like, I'm kind of good at it and I love you guys and you're doing it and I want to understand.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. And then we all did that show together in must have been 2014. And yeah, we all just kind of like wiped the floor on on our shows.
Yeah, like I think it's fair to say Chris and Ian both had this extreme passion for the sport, but you had an extreme passion for them. And that's really what,
For sure.
brought the two of
That's a
three of you
perfect
together
way
with
to
that.
explain it. That's
Yeah.
a perfect way to explain it.
It's interesting to see how that's developed because, like you said, you guys really did wipe the floor, and it's just been incrementally every year changing with that. It's been pretty remarkable to see over those years, right? What was it? The passion, or when did the passion start for the actual sport itself for you then? Because now you have more of the passion for the sport. You have an appreciation for the prep and all of that. When did that happen for you?
After I won.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like winning?
Yeah. The entire prep, I remember being like, this is awful. I hate this. I like wine and I like margaritas and I like peanut M&Ms and what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm never going to do this again. And then I competed and I just felt so, I guess, empowered. You know what I mean? I felt like I had put so much work and so much sacrifice into this one day, and everything that I accomplished, I felt like I directly deserved it. So it was very empowering, and it gave me a lot of feeling of control of my destiny. And that's not something I'd ever really experienced before. Like, I had studied for tests and then like gotten a 90 on an exam and had that feeling. But to have done something this extreme for this long and to have like literally changed my body, and it just, it made me feel so confident. Yeah.
A little rewind actually, because I think it's important for people to know your educational background too. I mean, I think a lot of people don't maybe know that side of you either.
No, because sometimes I forget it, to be honest.
That's awesome.
But it's impressive. And I think a lot of people look at, especially the sport of bodybuilding or football, for instance, they're like, oh, dumb jocks, or they have this stereotype around it, right? So why don't we go down that road with you? You're with your studies, and originally before bodybuilding was even that option career-wise, you had aspirations. And what exactly were those?
I mean, we were talking about this before, but I was always into math and science when I was in school. It was just like what I cared about. It was what I was good at. And I was convinced that I was going to be a pediatrician because I was like, I love kids and I'm good at science, so that's what I'm going to do. I didn't really have any idea what like going to med school meant, or what even the day-to-day of the life of a pediatrician is. Like, I didn't know what that was. I just thought it sounded cool, and I honestly knew it made my parents happy for me to say that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like when you're young, it's very hard to choose your path from what you want. There's so much external, societal, all these things.
Have you broken to Mary yet? That you're not going to be a pediatrician?
She still doesn't believe me. Mary, if you're listening, I'm not going. No, Mary still thinks that I'm going to go back and get my master's and be a psychologist one day.
She's in denial.
Mary, we got to talk.
Yeah, really. No, I struggled a lot in, honestly, the end of high school, grade 11, grade 12, in finding my autonomy as a human, because I was struggling with, well, I'm good at math and I'm good at science, and my parents really want me to be a doctor, and me really not giving a shit about any of that stuff. So I kind of rebelled a little bit. My grades fell, and I actually had to take a year off after high school, and I had to retake, I think I had to retake calculus. But I retook it, and I got, like, I don't know, a high enough grade. And then I got into school at Carleton, and I actually didn't know what I wanted to study. So I went into, I think I went into law.
No shit.
Which is so random, you know what I mean? But I was just like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I still wanted to be an academic, and I still wanted to make a lot of money and all these things. So I did a year of law, which was, the classes are nothing, you know what I mean? You're taking intro to law, you're taking like gender studies, and I just hated it all. I transferred to psychology, and I took a class called Intro to Neuroscience, and I was hooked. Like, I was obsessed with it. And the next year, actually, Carleton started offering a BSc in neuroscience. So I transferred into that, and I actually did, I mean, it took me 8 years to get my degree.
Oh, wow.
But I did it part-time. I worked full-time at Lululemon while I was getting my degree, and I graduated in 2018 with a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience and a minor in psychology. So
That's impressive.
I was actually bodybuilding, working full-time at Lululemon, and part-time school during my bodybuilding career.
I was always impressed with that. But it was just, you know, people talk about being overwhelmed with things, and here you are, just not just, I mean, we say it casually about bodybuilding, but I mean, you were at that point already at the pinnacle. You were, I mean,
the thing is, being with someone like Ian, like, even if you're competing at a low level, like, you don't really, there was no unprofessionalism ever. Even my first show, it was like, no, you don't get a cheat meal. No, you don't cheat on your diet. No, you don't miss a minute. It wasn't an option. And now that I've been here for a long time, and I've met competitors, and I see people, like, most people are kind of half-assing some things, but all I learned was Ian, and that was never an option. So I was just like, what do you mean you get to put mustard on your food? Like, I didn't even use mustard. You know what I mean? Like, was like, it was super, super intense, but I didn't know any different. I just thought that's how it was.
Yeah. And it very much is still like that with Ian.
Oh my God.
He's the most dedicated, by the book, compassionate towards the sport person I think that you're going to meet.
I was talking to, I've been going to the gym with him, not training with him, but I've been like training him, you know, and someone was like, oh, you're going to help push him. I'm like, no. My husband doesn't need any help being pushed. I'm there to remind him how much he fucking loves this shit. Like, that's why I'm there. I'm not there to be like, you better work. He's going to work no matter what. I'm there to make it enjoyable, because sometimes after so long of doing the same thing every day, you lose that. And that's the sad part. You know what I mean?
But there's levels to this, right?
Oh,
and his intensity is interesting enough. That intensity is what almost pulled you apart from him. Yeah. And then over time, you grew to love that and appreciate that intensity.
Yeah. Right? I also think I came along to help him soften that a little bit, right? Yeah. Like, I'm here for a reason, and I think he knows that. I don't think anyone can live at that level for an extended period of time. Like, he doesn't prep like that anymore, to be honest. Like, he's not like that. And if he did, he would have burnt out 10 years ago, you know?
And you've been through prep recently yourself.
Yeah.
And now do you feel inadequate when you hear about eating?
Did you get to eat mustard or what?
I am not going to put myself anywhere near this family. Not going there. But the story is aligned. So my wife is a fitness competitor, and she was getting into it, and literally I went through the exact same thing with her prep, but she had prepared me for it. So I knew it was coming. But then what my wife said is like, when I prep, why don't we just prep together? That way it's like misery loves company.
Yeah.
Right? So so when you were telling the story, I'm like, yeah, been there.
I mean, the thing is, for me, I've never been. Sometimes I think women shy away from their marriages or their husbands being the most important thing to them. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be independent. I don't want to be known as, like, people always ask, what's it like being Ian's wife? Or don't you want to be your own person? Or what's it like being Christopher's sister? But I never really felt any reason to shy away from that, because those two relationships were always the most important thing in my life. More important than success, more important than fame, more important than money. So I never really felt ashamed of that. And like, yeah, I'm going to make huge decisions about my life to make my relationship with Ian better. That's the most fucking important thing in my life. And it always will be. Like, so I don't know. People live differently now, I think, in relationships and marriages. It's almost like, especially as a woman, it's almost like taboo to live for your husband or to say that you do. It's like, oh, you don't have your own thing going on, or you got to make sure you make your own money in case this, or you got to have an exit plan. And to me, it's never even crossed my brain. It's just always been all in with this. This is the person that I'm supposed to be with, you know? So
I think that too many people have a plan B and rely on it instead of plan A is it, that's it, and it's going to be successful. End of story.
Well, people are scared, you know what I mean? I think they're scared that something's going to happen or someone's going to leave, and instead of acknowledging that fear and working through it, they're like, well, I want to be independent. I want to be my own person. And like, I am my own person. I'm an extremely like confident, independent woman, but I also live for my husband. I live for my marriage. You know what I mean? And that's not something to be ashamed of.
So here's something that my wife and I went through this, and I'm really curious on how you guys deal with it. It's like when you get into the fitness world and you're obviously putting yourself out there and the whole world to see. And there's a lot of people that are going to perceive that as you want attention and they're going to give it to you. So like, how do you guys handle like that attention you'll get? Like, so people will DM you or DM him provocative pictures, or, cause I've heard it's pretty wild. How do you guys deal with that?
I feel like we're kind of an anomaly, you know what I mean? Because both him and I got together before Instagram was a thing. So as Ian's popularity rose on Instagram, I was always there. So it was almost like Ian is this thing, or me, whatever, is this fitness girl, and they're putting pictures, but like we were always a unit. Whereas it's different, for example, like Christopher and Courtney. Christopher was already, like both of them actually were already very well known on the internet and probably had like fans and stuff like that. And then they came together. I also, it sounds kind of fake, but like my marriage is so secure that we don't think about it. You know what I mean? Like if I'm getting guys commenting on my photo, like fire or heart or like, you're so sexy, like I don't even think Ian he wouldn't ever think that anyone's going to do anything or say anything to me. And honestly, there was a period in our marriage where we weren't married. In our relationship, it was before we were engaged, where there was like, I don't want to say infidelity because it wasn't that, but there was attention coming my way that I was creating space for. Which to me, it's my responsibility not to create that space. This is the only example I have to kind of answer your question.
Yeah, sure.
And the root of the problem wasn't that I was an attractive woman and that I was getting attention. The root of the problem was that he was not giving me what I needed. So I was now creating space for someone else to come in and give me what I needed. And it's kind of gross to say, but we want affection and we want attention, especially from the opposite sex. We're wired that way. We're literally biologically wired for that. So when that happened, it was a huge point of contention in our relationship, right? Because there was like weird feelings about me and this person. And I kind of was like, you know what? You're right. Like the way that I'm conversing with this person, it's not appropriate. It wasn't anything bad. I would never do anything like crossing that line. But even to accept too many compliments from someone that you're around in close proximity to me, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And all he really had to say to me is ask me, is anything going on that would make me feel uncomfortable? Or if the situations were reversed, would you feel uncomfortable? And I was like, yeah, there is something. And I probably am accepting too much flirtatious attention, but it's because you're checked out.
Yeah.
And that was how we dealt with that. And I think when we had that probably pretty on in our relationship, I say we had been together for maybe 2 or 3 years. And ever since that happened, I don't know. First of all, he showed me so much grace in that situation as a man. You know what I mean?
That's legendary. So he actually said it like that. Like that's how he asked.
Yeah.
That's impressive. 2 or 3 years in. Young. He was how old?
Oh my God. He was 24.
Wow.
He is one of the most gracious men I have ever met. And honestly, he never gets mad or like, you know how men like have to like show their, like, that's my woman.
What's up?
Never. And I used to almost be like, oh, why aren't you jealous? Like, why don't you care? And this situation happened, and the way he dealt with it, I remember he was pissed. I can't lie. Like we had the conversation. He went upstairs. I remember he closed the door. He was in the bedroom, and I'm sitting downstairs alone, and I'm like, oh fuck. Like I just screwed up for nothing. Like he's going to think something was worse. He's not going to believe me. Like all these things were going through my head. He came back down probably 30 minutes later, and he was like, did you cross a line? And I said, no. And he said, do you want to be with me? Like, is this a bigger deal? And I said, I do. I should have told you that we needed to work through this. I shouldn't have accepted this attention, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, at the end of the day, I love you and I'm choosing to trust you and we're moving on. And he actually moved on.
Wow.
And like, I couldn't have done that.
Right.
I could not have done that.
That's for Ian. That's for Ian right there.
That's the first.
Good for him.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is
I have
for
to
him.
say that, like both of you at that age to have that level of poise, restraint, mutual respect, integrity. Like it makes a lot of sense to me why your relationship or the foundation of it is so strong because you guys have established these incredibly strong pillars of character and you've built the marriage on that foundation. So that was the perfect answer because you just layer it out. Like you've got this incredible man with incredible values and restraint, but you also were big enough to own up to what you did without becoming defensive or to play games or gaslight or whatever. Because the world we live in today, people shy away from confrontation or they don't want to admit when they're wrong because of how it makes them feel about themselves. Right. But we all make mistakes. And you had this like incredible ownership. And then you guys grew together, which is like absolutely beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. It's rare at that young of an age.
Yeah, man. It's impressive.
I don't know where again, I think it's just like two of the right people coming together at the right time because I was always someone that was craving a space to admit my faults and to open up to, but I never really felt like I had it growing up. I felt like I always had this kind of, idea of perfection that I had to live up to. And I felt like as a child, I was always screwing up being like, tell me I screwed up. I want to own this. I want to make mistakes. I want to be messy and I want it to be okay. And I didn't really feel like I had that space. And I met Ian at a time where that's all I wanted. And he gave me so much grace and so much acceptance all the time. It didn't matter. I could do no wrong. I just felt so accepted and safe. And that created an opportunity of growth for me to like become this woman that I am. And he needed, honestly, help having not space, because that's not the right thing. I think he grew up with a lot of space to be whatever he wanted, but he didn't really have a lot of direction on how to share vulnerabilities and how to share when you're screwed up, you know what I mean? And having it be okay. So we kind of like came together as this beautiful like yin and yang, and we just kind of grew together. And honestly, from the day we met each other, we had both been in like toxic, like what you said before about like gaslighting and all those things. That was probably his relationship before to a T. So when we met each other, we had moved on from those relationships, but we were both like non-negotiable. All we have to do in this relationship is be honest and be respectful. All it was about respect, because we had been very disrespected before. So it was just like so, we were both so clear, you know?
Yeah.
Coming from especially the relationship you had though, how were you able to, I mean, obviously with the personality that Ian has, but how were you able to come from such a toxic relationship of being cheated on for 6 years and then go into a relationship with a guy that's got a lot of attention from a lot of men and females?
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. He's got
probably more
men.
Yes.
And how, for you, like from your past and learning and growing, how have you adapted to that? What's it taken other than Ian's chill personality?
Yeah.
What do you think that for you yourself, when you're looking at that situation, what has it been?
Yeah. Obviously, when you get out of a relationship that has an extreme amount of lying and infidelity, I mean, it's traumatic. You start to own it and take it on, and you feel very insecure. By the time that I had actually chosen to leave that relationship, I had already gone through an extreme amount of healing, and I had kind of just started to realize that like I really loved the person I was with before. I really loved him very dearly. I think he loved me in the way that he knew how, but he wasn't mentally well. He was like doing things to gain validation and gain confidence at the detriment to our relationship and me. But my healing had begun probably months before I actually chose to leave him. And I started to kind of realize that like who I was as a woman wasn't reflected in how he was treating me. So I left, and I don't think I would have been able to leave if I hadn't have done that healing while I was with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so what triggered the healing? Like at what point did you say, because what people will typically do is when they're victims, they almost embrace that victimhood.
Yeah.
But the difficult part is acknowledging that, because if you're a victim, it means somebody is harming you, right? And then you're saying, okay, so I'm being harmed. There's nothing I can do. But then you almost become a warrior, right? Because they're like, no. So where was that for you?
As wild as this is, and people call this place a cult all the time, I started working at Lululemon.
I was going to say Scientology, so I'm glad you went with Lululemon.
At what point was it
like,
Brad Pitt?
Holy
No, not
shit,
Brad
Mel, I
Pitt.
didn't know that about you.
A little better. No,
Tom
it's
Cruise.
Tom
Tom Cruise.
Cruise. Yeah. No, not
At what
Scientology.
point does he enter the story?
I wish. No.
What did Tom do?
Is he the guy?
He was cheating on me.
Ian's like, all right, I'm good. Like, I get it.
I'm out. No. I started working at Lululemon, and I worked with a very amazing group of women. And I started to learn things like personal responsibility and setting goals and taking control of your choices and where your choices make you end up and all these things. And I just kind of started like looking at my life and my relationship being like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm choosing this. Like, I'm accepting this, and I deserve it. Until I choose to not accept it, you do deserve this. And then I chose not to accept it because I knew I didn't deserve it. And then I was just done. It was, I know it sounds so simple, but it was just like, I don't know. I guess it was part of me kind of opening my eyes and realizing that like I get to decide how I'm treated. You know what I mean? And I've been allowing this. How I didn't even feel like I had the right to cry about it anymore or complain about it because I was like, ew.
Gross.
Yeah, gross. Yeah. And I just remember waking up one day and I looked at my mom, and I started working at Lululemon, and I actually moved back to my parents' house. So I decided to get rid of my apartment that was on campus, and I went back home, and I kind of spent more time with my parents and my brother. I bought a car, and I still worked at Lululemon, and I was in Canada again, and I just started to kind of feel worthy. And I just woke up one day and I went to my mom. I'm like, I think I'm going to leave him. And my mom was like, okay, like, how long is this going to last? You know what I mean? And I was like, no, this is it. And no one believed me because we went back and forth all the time. And he didn't even believe me when I told him. I remember sitting down and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm done. And he was like, no, but like kind of didn't believe me. You know what I mean? And like even
she'll be back.
Yeah. Even like weeks after, he would still kind of just like acted. And I was just gross. I wasn't grossed out by him. I was just grossed out by the relationship. I was just like grossed out by myself, who I'd become. And I was just done. Never went back. Never thought about him again like that.
That's it. That was it.
Yeah.
Powerful though.
Yeah.
Huge learning step in a
it changed the entire trajectory of my life. You know what I mean? When you think about stuff like that in your early 20s, like it's you don't really think when you're young, but like these choices are serious, you know?
Yeah.
You look back at some of those past relationships and you're like,
Thank God it was when I was like 16 to 22 and it wasn't like 22 till 30. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And thank God, because like the woman that came out of that would not have been me, you know? So.
Right. So the hardship or what you went through, you would say, is it like that has prompted the growth to who you are?
I don't think I would have been as powerful as a partner when I met Ian if I hadn't have gone through that. You know what I mean? I think the person that I was ready to be in a partnership or in a relationship came from all the struggle from before. And it wasn't like there was a lot of love. So I was still trying to persevere through all these things with this person. I was still really trying, and I was still supporting and loving. And I'm not an ego-driven person at all. It's like almost like I wish I was a little more. Like I can get walked over sometimes because I'm really like, I don't care. But I also think loving someone through them treating me like that kind of made me a more powerful partner, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So through all of that, I mean, you have now blossomed into the person that you are right now. Mm-hmm. What do you think that if people listening going through hard times in a relationship, what do you think for yourself in your relationship? Mm-hmm. How many years now married?
We'll be married 5 years at the end of this year, together for 11.
Yeah. So that's a lot of years. And
So
what do you think? There's no magic pill to this or anything like that, but what do you think the key is that's not just having a relationship, but thriving in a relationship? Mm-hmm. Because the two of you go through ups and downs and you work through them. But what do you think it is? Is it communication? What is the secret, if you will, with Mel and Ian?
My answer's always going to change.
Yeah.
Honestly, based on the struggles that my marriage is going through, because it's very rare that you'll see me for more than 2 months at a time, and I won't have been going through a struggle in my marriage. I think that's part of two people trying to grow and live very successful lives together. So before it, probably I would have said communication, because me and him were learning how to communicate our needs while still respecting the other person's needs. But that's something that we've now mastered. So I obviously you need to communicate. But now my new kind of thing that I'm learning is trust. And it's not necessarily trust in the typical way of, I know he's not going to cheat on me or whatever. It's me trusting that my husband can give me everything that I need. Yeah. And by me trusting that he can give me everything that I need, I'm now able to ask for everything that I need. Yeah. I find women a lot of times will want our men to step up, will want them to show up, will want them to be who we want them to be for us as men, as providers, as protectors, but we don't tell them. Either we have a bunch of excuses, right? Maybe we did tell him once and he didn't listen and he didn't do it, or I don't want to be naggy, or whatever we tell. But at the core of it, we're scared that we're going to ask for what we need and they're not going to want to give it to us. Yeah. I have shut up for a very long time because I don't want to add to his plate, or I don't want to stress him out more, or I don't want to nag or whatever. And it doesn't serve anybody. Yeah. It sure as shit doesn't serve me, and it definitely doesn't serve him. And I have a husband that actually begs for me to tell him what I want from him. He asks me every day. If I'm kind of quiet, he knows immediately, and he tells me, like, what's going on? Tell me what you, and I never actually say it. And if you can actually trust that you're with a man that wants to give you what you need, and you just tell him, I promise you, if you're with the right man, he's going to step up and he's going to do it.
Or at least try.
Yeah.
Certainly.
But
there's effort.
At the end of the day, all a woman wants is to feel like she's cared about enough that you're going to put out energy to give her what she needs. And a man wants to. Yeah. A man wants to give. If he loves you and he wants to take care of you, he wants to give you what you need and what you want.
And it comes back to that whole communication. A lot of, you see, I mean, all of us have seen our friends' relationships, or even our own in the past, like they have faltered because of lack of communication or lack of transparency on like truly what I need in that relationship. This is what I need in this moment. And like you said, it changes all the time. Your needs are going to always change. You're growing as a person.
Well, also the majority of the time for most people, they don't actually know. Yeah. So I think as an individual, you need to figure out like what matters to you and what you need in a partner for not only you to feel connected, but for you to be able to thrive as an individual too.
Yeah. And I think, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's like my responsibility to know. And it's my responsibility to share that information with my partner.
Because I think it was you that said earlier, and I think that speaks to your marriage as well, is you guys are committed to each other. Like it was, you mentioned there's like a plan B. And I think that the way that Ian taught you to approach a show, like not even mustard, the guy is committed to his craft. And I think where a lot of men in today's age, well, actually it's changing, but are committed to their marriage. Because you hear a lot where men will go outside of the marriage and so on. And that I feel is ego-driven and validation, right? But you can get a big ego boost by being your wife's biggest supporter and then getting that energy back from her, like what you're giving him back. That's where he's getting his juice, right? Which is incredible. I think that's what your marriage, what really holds it together. You guys are in it to win it. You're approaching your marriage like you approach your preps, which you guys are animals at. And it's beautiful. Yeah.
I will never stop putting him on a pedestal as who he shows up for as a husband, because he deserves to know. And
that's awesome.
you're right. I don't think it's just men, to be honest. I think it's women too.
Yeah.
The commitment to want to work and to want to like just focus on what you have, it's not really there anymore. I don't know if it's because social media and there's so much distractions, but people are like still looking around when like that's not even on our radar. Like that wouldn't even be an option. Like it's like, I'm choosing to be with you. I married you. No, divorce isn't an option. Cheating isn't an option. This is like where we are. So this is what we're doing. And that's just, it's not very common anymore.
No,
It really isn't.
And it's beautiful that people in the public eye, like yourselves, are living that life, because I think that we need role models, and you guys are incredible role models. So I really appreciate and how you guys share it openly, even the bad stuff, but how you dealt with it. Because I think a lot of people today don't want to share the hard stuff
No.
because they feel ashamed,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. Or they don't want to feel like, sharing the other sides.
Well, they want to be perceived as this epitome of perfection, right? That's like what like everyone's obsessed with, and I'm quite obsessed with the opposite. I always have been. And I'm not really, I don't think I could be in the relationship I'm in today and be ashamed of anything that brought me there. Even if it was worse than what had happened, there would be no shame, because like I'm too proud of where I am with him today. Yeah. There's no way in hell.
But yeah, society as a whole right now definitely is fixated on this perfect world of social media. And I remember having a conversation with your brother where, I was asking him, he was popular, but we're talking maybe 200,000 followers popular.
Yeah, not 16.5 million.
Yeah, like there's a big difference at that time. But
I died when I saw that the other day.
But he had made the comment to me that it's amazing how many people think social media is real, and it's scary that there's a whole generation of individuals, and even more than one generation, that now is fixated on social media, thinks that everything has to be perfect, makeup has to be perfect, the filter has to be on, everything has to be just right. And that's one of the reasons Mark and I, when we had conversations about doing this podcast, was the idea of we need real talk. We need conversations, and we need people that are coming in and willing to open up and be honest and open about those things.
Yeah, honestly, I love podcasting, and I love YouTube because I find it just to be a lot more genuine. Yeah. I have a really hard time with Instagram. I can't lie. I really
Don't like it.
No, I don't think if there wasn't like endorsements and marketing to be done on there, I don't think it's a good place to be. But podcasting and YouTube, listen, that's not true, because there are some people on Instagram that share very real shit. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's just the majority of what you see, it's just not, it's nice to look at. It's like if you look at a magazine, but people don't think about it like that.
It's a snapshot.
Yeah, if you think about it like you're looking at a magazine, or if you're like looking at a billboard or something, like that's great, but it becomes what people think that life is, and like nobody argues, and everyone always looks pretty, and no one has a fucking cellulite on there. It's just not real,
It's when we opened the clinic here, we started having conversations outside in the lobby, and we're having all these conversations, and it was just real talk. It was people were opening up, and it was flattering because they feel like they're in a comfortable environment. They can open up about those things, and it was amazing at how many similarities we all had.
Oh my God.
All go through the same struggles. We've all had the shitty relationship. We've all had, you name it, we've all gone through it. But a lot of people don't talk about it.
No.
They just shy away from it. And like you said, the fear of, are you at a point in your life or career where you're just like, fuck it. I don't care. Not that I don't care, but I'm willing to open up, have these conversations regardless of what might be a perception?
I think I've learned that there's always going to be somebody that takes something the wrong way. You know what I mean? And I can't be held responsible for people wanting to put assumptions or projections or twists onto what I say. I can just do my best to try to communicate powerfully and articulate how I'm feeling and hopefully connect with somebody some way. And that's really all that matters to me at this point.
Do you find that yourself, that you, I kind of already know the answer to this, but I'm going to put it in there. It is interesting. It is interesting having a podcast with you, because when you do know certain aspects of a person and then you're asking them out there, right? Like, but I want to be genuine. I do.
Of course.
But do you feel that that part of you holds back when you're faced with some of the negativity that's out there on social media? You know, we just had the conversation where, God bless us, but was it 3 hours of trying to figure out this stuff for you and Courtney to talk? But you know, and so a shout out to your podcast, Giver. So that's exciting. But do you find yourself hesitating to just tell someone, listen, you're an asshole? End of story.
Yeah.
Like,
I would never do that. But what has happened in the last probably, how old am I? I would say I started to get negative comments 6 years ago, and they will never leave my heart. I can't lie. Like, I don't get crazy ones, but I've gotten a couple, you know, shitty things saying, you look like a man, or you sound like a man, or you're fat, or like whatever people say. Just mean shit that like you never forget. And that has kind of kept me off of, I don't know, putting myself out there more, especially on Instagram, because I don't like my inability to share what I think are the most valuable things about me. I also don't want to put a picture and be subjected to like awful comments. And I also don't like that I've become a girl that cares about that shit. Because to be honest, I was actually never someone that cared about how I looked. I liked fashion and I liked feeling pretty, but like that was never a defining feature of me. And then all of a sudden I started competing in bodybuilding and becoming a fitness person on Instagram, and it started to become defining. And then I started to resent it. And then I started to think that that was the only thing that was special about me. And then I started to feel like a fraud, because I was like, well, you're not even that pretty. Why are you getting so much attention? Like it was a really fucked up time in my life. And I've just honestly shied away. I post less on Instagram. I've wanted to do a YouTube for so long. I never did it because I did one interview on YouTube once, and I read the comments and I almost started crying. It was like so mean.
Are you still reading comments? Or just a little less?
I don't know. I don't really put myself out there enough. You know what I mean? I have let those things stop me from doing what I want for too long. But that's why I chose to kind of go into podcasting with Courtney, because now I feel I'm number one in control with what I'm sharing and what I'm doing. And it's less about how I look and more about who I am. And to me, that's more important. So to answer your question, for sure, it's affected how much I put out there, but it would never affect what I put out there. I'm not someone that's able to change. I'm so authentically myself that I couldn't fake it. I could not. I just stop. You know what I mean? Right. So that's that's literally why our podcast is called Giver, though, because like we're just giving her. Like it's just time to jump in, because I'm 32 and I don't want to be scared of trolls on the internet, and I don't want to stop from like doing something that matters and that that I love doing.
You'd be doing a disservice if you listen to those trolls who are just keyboard ninjas that, living in mom and dad's basement and haven't done anything in their life, and you're out there giving her literally, and they're the ones that are saying to you that you're this, you're that, you're everything else. I mean, at some point in life, you just got to realize that you're not going to appease everybody.
I think you just have to understand that these things are going to come in, and they're going to sting, but they're actually not going to change anything at the end of the day. Like, it's going to hurt. We're not superhuman, can see these things and, be okay.
Yeah. It's sad that we have a society that first of all thinks that anybody who's got a platform, like yourself, your brother, your husband, that by them putting these negative comments out there that it matters. Like, it's just, there's too much negativity on social media these days. There's too much of individuals like chirping one another, and not that long ago Ian went through it with everything with Milo.
Oh yeah, Ian's been ripped apart on social media.
Oh really? Eh?
Yeah, Ian. I push Ian to put himself out there more, because Ian's the type of guy that I think if you don't he's misunderstood easily. He can come. He's very abrasive. You know how he speaks. He's like very abrasive and very convicted in how he speaks, but he can, if he's misunderstood, I think he's very polarizing. So he kind of was dragged a little bit on social media, and it affects people's mental health. Like, it's not,
But I think even in that situation is that he's extremely intelligent in the world of bodybuilding. Extremely intelligent. So where he's coming from is not a person that's the keyboard ninja in the back room that's never lifted a weight in their life. He's lived this his whole life. He's very knowledgeable. So when people need to listen to that opinion, and they might not agree with it, and that's fine. They're not going to agree with anything that that somebody comes on here and says, but listen, I'm always my husband's biggest supporter. I do think sometimes you need to stop and listen to how you are coming across. Yeah. Because if it's a popular opinion of how you're coming across, and that's not how you're intending to come across, you can take a look in the mirror and kind of shift that. But it's hard, It's hard. Like, I'm saying I'm not an ego-driven person. My husband is a very ego-driven person. Yeah. So that is something that, it was hard for him to go through that, but it was there for a reason. You know what I mean? And I think it's kind of like, okay, like, how can I look in the mirror and how can I become less affected by this? Not change who I am. He should never change who he is. But if you're not coming across in the way that you intend, you have the power to change that.
Yeah. It reminds me of, so when I went to college, I had these aspirations. I wanted to be a police officer. And there was a class that I took that was called conflict management. And still to this day, it's the most instrumental thing that I've ever been taught. And in one class in particular, the teacher said, because if an officer is dispatched, you live that life, right? People are in a conflict where logic and reason has left the room.
Out the window.
Police are involved, like, it's out of control. What they taught us is when they were communicating with people, they would always say, what percentage of ownership would you be willing to accept if 0% was not a number? And if you even get somebody to say 1%, so like what Ian was going through and being abrasive, they're cutting him up. Very likely they have no basis. And small people do small things, right? Simply put, you're a loser, nobody on the internet. Good for you. But the irony is Ian being a bigger man, physically and emotionally, the guy's a beast. He takes ownership of it. You prompt that ownership, because you're an awesome wife. My wife does the exact same thing because I've come off as pretty abrasive in my younger days. And thank God for my wife who would just say, are you sure you want to say it like that? And I'm like, no, that's how I say it. That's how I am. And she's like,
I'm not
is that
going
really
to change.
how you are? Is that really how you are? Because I know someone different. But that's me. That's not how people see it. Right? God bless women.
Yeah, but also God bless you and Ian for showing that side of yourselves to us.
Right.
Because that she would not know that side of you if you didn't choose to show it to her.
Right.
So like there's this like, I don't know. I always say like you get to, not everyone deserves to see every piece of you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if Ian wants to come off as abrasive, cool. But you need to be willing to accept, as you're saying, whatever percentage. You need to be like, okay, I'm choosing to only show this side of me because this is how I feel safe with strangers or with the internet. So this is what's happening. I accept whatever comes along.
Right.
But if what's coming along isn't what you like, you can change.
Yeah.
Because obviously your wife and me, we're going to see the softest sides of you. We're your safe place. We like, that's what we get. But I don't know. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, this is what this is about.
But you're right. If you're to even accept 1% and like change that and try to come down a little bit and to be perceived as something else, you'd be surprised at the response that you get. And that usually is some positive feedback for you to continue to show up more authentically of yourself and not have to be this strong, smart, fast-speaking, loud man that's like the biggest and smartest in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like behind every great man's a greater woman. It's so cliche and lame to say, but a power couple to me, the most powerful, in my opinion, is the woman who puts her intention into shaping her man. Because like in the time of kings, you know, if you think the king was running the country, you have no idea. That woman was running the country through the king, right? She's like watching, because women are social animals, right? Like men are just coming in with their big stick. And the women are watching. They're like, did you see that guy? He was, you know, this girl.
Yeah.
You will watch for that one.
With their
Women
big
read character.
I gotta be quicker on this.
Oh, no, you're doing great. He said, let me use my buttons.
It's a delayed reaction on that one. I love it.
I swear to God, this podcast is gonna get better as we do more, eh?
No, that was awesome. I don't care what people think. I'm going to say right now,
big
I love that.
I think when we get back to when we're talking about with those conversations that people have, and then people jump in and how you're being perceived. I know that I'm at fault. It's when it's personal. Like, I have no problem de-escalating a situation when it's involving individuals, and I'm at arm's length. But when it's personal to me, for instance, I can tell you from personal experience, raising kids.
Yeah.
When you get into that world where you're raising a kid and you want nothing but the best for them, and your intention, your heart, everything is in the right place, but you come across as something that's different, and that's hard. That's a hard part, is learning that balance where you just want the best for the person, and you're trying to find a way to communicate that well with them, and then it comes across differently. And that's a struggle. That's certainly, and I think it's in relationships too. I mean, certainly like Alina puts me in check. It's, I certainly wouldn't be the person I am today without the guidance of her, of just, I think all of our spouses really, they want the best for us, and they know what the best version of us can be. And so they're so supportive. I think it's fair to say, and I know both your spouses, but that we have 3 amazing spouses that really do encourage us to do a Sunday night podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it for them.
No.
but they know it makes us happy, and they support that, whatever it is. And that's big. When you find that somebody, and you connect with somebody that you share a life with, and then they're so supportive, whatever your aspirations are. You want to do a podcast, and you have one person in Florida, you got yourself here, and Ian 20 minutes down the road. Okay, go for it, hun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
I think you get to a place where you meet someone that's just as invested in your happiness as you are.
for sure.
And it just creates kind of like a safe landing pad. So you feel like you really can do anything and it doesn't really matter what happens because you have them, you know?
So you're going to divert a little bit here because you mentioned a few times talking about the effects of that negativity with social media and that on mental health. And that's a hard struggle when you're now, whether you've chosen to or not, you're in the public limelight, you're out there. And now all of a sudden, every part of your life has the potential of being exposed for the world to see it. Where's that, and how is that for you starting off just to learn to deal with that? And how have you learned to push through that negativity that you've had? You haven't. No, and that's fine too. It's always a journey, right?
Yeah.
So,
I don't really know the answer,
No?
to be honest. The hardest part is that it doesn't happen when people say things about, you know, stuff that you don't care about.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's something that you have even had one negative thought or one tiny insecure moment about, if someone notices it and calls it out, you're now in this whole cycle of like, oh my God, they're right. Oh my God, I shouldn't do this. Oh my God, who do I think I am? Like, I don't have the nicest body. Why am I doing this? Like, oh my God, I'm not the prettiest girl, or I'm not the, you know, like all these things. Or like, oh my God, they're right. I do have a fake tan and filler in my lips. Would I be ugly without any of this other, like all these things just start to become truth in your mind. I don't know. I don't really.
I think for me, one of those moments where I saw you struggle was pre-Arnold Classic. You fine if we talk about that?
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah. So pre-Arnold Classic.
So 2018 was probably my most successful season. I did five shows. I came second in 2, I came fourth in 2, and then I won like the biggest show of the year. And then I went to the Olympia. And there was a lot of hype for me going into that Olympia. I had just won Tampa Pro against 55 other girls. I had beat the girl that came second to me was like a big deal. I'm pretty sure she like won the Arnold and came second at the Olympia. Like it was a big deal. And I was going into this Olympia and I was, I didn't feel pressure, but I felt I'm like, I'm going to do good. Like, this is great. I'm like mentally set up for this. I'm so primed. And my prep was like so great. I was like the best shape of my life. Like I thought I was going to do so well. And I got up on stage and they did the first call out and my name wasn't there. And I was like, oh, that's okay. Top 10. Second call out, my name wasn't there. And then I'm starting to like, you know, my heart's pounding and I'm on there and I'm like, oh God, like you're going to be at the bottom again. Like this was my second Olympia. My first Olympia, I was just happy to be there. You know what I mean? And I was in the second half of the girls. I didn't really care. I was just happy to be there. But this one, I was like, I honestly to be completely honest, I had aspirations of being in the top 5 that year, 100%. I probably never said that out loud, but
I think you may have.
Okay. Okay. But they called third call out and I was in it and I'm like, okay, at least I'm going to be put on the inside. And I got like moved in, but then I didn't get like, moved in to the middle. So I got off stage and I was like, wow, like that sucked. You know what I mean? Like that's not at all what I wanted. Ian was there and Ian was like, you did so good. Da, 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 da. And I was like, that's awful. Like, this is not okay for me. And I was super disappointed. Whatever. That night ended. I ended up coming 12th, which was very disappointing because I wanted a top 5, but my like bottom line goal, I always do like a top tier goal and then a kind of like baseline, like you better get this. My baseline was top 10. So I was really disappointed. I didn't really process that disappointment. I didn't feel like I deserved to be disappointed. I felt like I should just be happy to be there, you know? And it was a lot that year. Like Ian did the Olympia that year. My brother did the Olympia that year. It was that Olympia was pretty mentally tough for me. And then we were getting married a month later.
Yeah.
So we left Vegas. We went back to Ottawa. We got married. And I just remember, sounds so bad. My wedding was amazing. Best day ever. I remember waking up the next day and being like, like, what now? Like, I just had the biggest year of my life. And now, like, what now?
What's next?
And it was just a bit of a dopamine dump.
Yeah.
And we went on like a 2-night honeymoon to the place that he proposed to me, and it was beautiful. And I just was lying there and I was just so unsatisfied. I just remember feeling so unsatisfied. And I didn't feel safe enough to tell this to my husband that I had just married 3 days ago. I probably didn't even really feel safe to admit it to myself. I just was like,
Maybe there was some guilt there in how
extreme. And I don't even know if I really was processing at that age, like all of these feelings and all that kind of stuff. And my response to that feeling was to look at my husband and be like, I want to do the Arnold. And he was like, okay, that's in 3 months. Yeah. And you have just been prepping for 12 months straight. Your body probably needs a break. Your mind needs a break. Like, I don't think this is a good idea. No, I want to do it. Okay, why? Like, blah, blah, blah. Well, I didn't get accepted to the Arnold last year. I want to apply and see if they accept me. And I just need to I need something. And he was very adamant that it was not a good idea. And I was myself and I was extremely stubborn. Yeah. And he, of course, was like, okay, whatever you want, we'll do it. And Ian's my coach, by the way. He preps me. So I applied for the Arnold, and you don't hear back until probably, I think it was second week of December. And the show is second week of March, maybe first week of March. Okay. First. Yeah, it's early March. Early. So and I, as a woman, I would prep for about 5 months before a show. Mind you, I had just competed. I wasn't in that bad of shape, but my metabolism was in the shitter. My hormones were in the shitter. Everything was in a bad, bad place. My mental health was not in a good place. And I applied. And in the 2 weeks between me applying and me hearing back, I didn't work out. I ate like a pig. And my husband was very gently like, hey, like,
you're going to do a show.
I'm like, well, no, they probably won't accept me anyways. And he was like, they're going to accept you. Like, there's no way they're not accepting you. You did 5 shows last year and you won Tampa Pro. There's no way they're not accepting you. And I was like, oh, well, no. Of course they accept me. I'm happy that they accepted me, but I'm scared shitless because I'm now 10 weeks out from the show and I'm 175 pounds. My stage weight is 150, maybe less, depending on how good of shape I'm in. And I'm now realizing that I have to lose between 25 and 30 pounds in 10 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm starting in a place where my metabolism is in the shitter. So, Ian tries to be my coach, and I'm just ignoring it all. I'm eating 0 carbs, 0 fat, doing 2 hours of cardio a day. I won't let Ian look at me. So normally we do check-ins, right? Like I will get on the scale, I'll pose in front of him, he'll make adjustments. Nope. Won't let him look at me. I won't even wear a tank top in the gym. And I'm extremely depressed. I'm a morning person. I wake up without an alarm to this day at 6 a.m. It's not a problem. I sleep like a baby. I was going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. I was sleeping until about noon.
Oh, wow.
I was so tired. And I just was so unhappy. Like I was so unhappy. I didn't realize at that time, it probably wasn't acceptable to pull out of a show that you had applied to. You know, I applied, they accepted me. I don't have a choice. I have to do this show. I was picturing myself, falling down the stairs and breaking my ankle so I didn't have to compete. Like I was like, you know, going through those kind of things. And, I wasn't communicating with anybody how I was feeling. I wasn't talking. I wasn't even admitting it to myself. I was just like trying to go through the motions. We got to Ohio and oh my God. I kind of think I blacked out this entire experience, to be honest. I didn't like try on my suit. I didn't look at my body. I remember I got spray tanned, and they're the girls that always tan me, and I could tell like they were spraying me and like it was like awkward. You know what I mean? Like they were like, ooh, like you don't look like you normally do. And I remember I put on my suit and the bottoms were too small because of course I'm out of shape. My suit maker is used to me being like ripped, like literally no butt. I'm so lean. And I just like didn't talk about it, didn't really, just like went through the motions and went on stage anyways. And it was probably one of the most embarrassing, shameful experiences I've ever had in my life. And I got off stage and I just remember wanting to disappear. Like I didn't want to see anybody. My brother was there. My husband was there. Courtney was there in the audience watching me. Ian was with like other people that we were new in the industry. Like everyone was watching and everyone was just like, ooh, you know, like happened? You came on stage and it was just like, oh.
So to rewind a little bit, you tried the suit on when you were there. And did you have was that the moment where you were like, oh shit? I know that leading up to it, you certainly, how would you describe it? Almost like you had brain fog, like you were just not there.
Yes.
Like, talking to you, you were very just.
I barely remember those months.
Yeah, you're very distant.
I honestly, it's very hard for me to even remember that period of my life. I put them on and I just knew they were too tight, and I was just like, well, I hope like my vagina doesn't show on stage.
Yeah.
I just like
spray tan more.
Literally like this.
I don't think you could spray tan that away, can you?
Hide it. Just hide it all. No,
walk on stage like you have to pee.
It's so not my personality because I'm so assertive. I'm like such an assertive woman, and it was just like months of extreme. You're right. It was fog. It was so weird.
Because you come up, well, I mean, you are such a strong woman. Is it possible that this may have stemmed from the guilt of like you had your dopamine? Because like anybody who's accomplished incredible things, once they get to the peak, then what? I think we've all experienced that, right? And then there's this crash. And maybe there was some guilt and maybe some self-hatred, because it sounds like you almost like wanted to screw up to like bring this pain on yourself for the guilt that you had. Maybe
it's possible,
like self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage, because we've all done it and I've seen it, but you're not aware. But it's almost like you tell yourself you're worthless, so then you bring on worthless energy. Right.
Well, I think part of and maybe we can dive into this, is that, and we'll get back to the actual article itself, but like you said, there's your normal prep would be 5 months. So anybody who isn't familiar with a prep, maybe we should go through that. Supplementation changes, diet changes.
Yeah, no, you're right. So listen, when I'm not a natural athlete. I use PEDs. So I normally have an extensive off season.
Yeah.
So after a show, I come off all PEDs. My hormones re-regulate. I gain quite a bit of body fat. I always did. That's who I was. And I would be completely natural for my entire off season, wait till my cycle was regular, wait till my blood panel was normal, my hormones were regular. I was eating healthy again. My thyroid had like come back, all these things. And then I would start a prep. Minimum would be 20 weeks, which is about 5 months. And the prep would always start natural. So the first probably 8 to 10 weeks would be me just getting back in the gym, getting back to eating healthy. Food is still very high. It probably starts somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day. And cardio starts at 0. And I very slowly let my body get back into this routine of the same thing every day and let the response follow just naturally. And then as I get closer to a show, food comes down, cardio goes up, PEDs come in, and then I start, ramping up. And it's a very slow process that kind of you're climbing the stairs. You're not just going from nothing to everything.
Yeah.
As a woman, you're also letting your hormones regulate every year. So a lot of our mental health comes from things like serotonin, which you need progesterone for. You need estrogen. Those are like these things that make us feel good, right? And when I would get ready for a bodybuilding show, those were shunted. So I came off of a 12-month prep and they were shunted. And while you're competing, it's kind of like you're so focused and you're like driven and you don't really want those emotions anyways. And you're ripped, so you feel great and you're training and all you care about is that. And you have these highs of the shows every 4 weeks and all these things. So you're going through it. And then I had a wedding, which honestly, I didn't even know post-wedding blues were a thing. And then after I went through it, I started researching, and it's actually very common for brides to have that because we look forward to that for our entire lives, and then it's over. And that doesn't mean we're depressed that we're married or that we're stuck with so-and-so forever. It just means that something that we spent decades looking forward to is now in the past. You know what I mean? A lot of people experience it after they're done having babies. And that's why a lot of times women will randomly be like, oh, you want to have another? And men are like, what the fuck? No, we're done. But once what we look forward to, once that's behind us, it's scary and it's sad. So I think I was experiencing all of those things, and my solve was what normally made me feel good, which was success from bodybuilding and external validation and feeling good about my body. You get a little bit of body dysmorphia. So I prepped from January until the Olympia, which was in September. I prepped that entire year. So I was very used to seeing my body in a certain way. And that became normal for me. It wasn't just 12 weeks of me being ripped. It was actually 8 months. So when that started to go away, I was depressed. I thought I looked disgusting. Like all these things were happening to me at once. And my solution was, well, lose this weight that's making you sad and have a new goal. And this is going to fix everything for you. And that's what I tried to force myself into. And it was not the solution. And instead, I ended up doing something, and I was severely depressed. So the fog that I was in didn't kind of allow me to think about like, maybe this isn't the best idea right now. Maybe I can reach out to the committee and say, I'm sorry, this isn't okay for my mental health. I need to pull my name from the list, which now it happens every year. Like I see girls do it and guys do it all the time. I wish I had done it. I really, really do. But I didn't even have the wherewithal to think about something like that.
I'm glad that now it's common. Now you see it a lot more, and that's why I want to touch on, because a lot of people don't understand what a prep entails and how extreme your body, your hormones can get.
Yes.
And pulling out of a show is really hard for people, right? Maybe you could talk about that, because I have a few of my friends that have done it. I've done it.
I was going to say, you
speak to it, because I've never done it.
Yeah.
I've never pulled out. Well, sorry, that's not true. I have, but you go ahead.
Should I hit the button again here?
I think it's the humiliation of it, because it's because social media, right? You're so vocal about it. And I think a lot of us do it for different reasons. For me personally, it was with my wife and support. And also for myself, I'm approaching 40. So I had all these goals I wanted to smash. Like I wanted to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu and all that. I said, I want to do a show by the time I'm 40. It's like, okay, set the bar for the next half of my life. And it was hard, because for me pulling out was actually, it wasn't because of me, but it was on the impact on my family.
Yeah.
My wife was, we had just moved into our home, and the builder, oh my God, they butchered it, to say an understatement. And I'm in real estate, so I'm used to it. I've seen it all. But they fired the foreman on our house like 3 months before it was done. So there was no accountability on what they were doing. Like they framed my house wrong. I had to bring an engineer in. They had to rip up my staircase and
So you're living in it when you realize that this is how it was constructed.
Yeah. So we walk in, and this is my wife's first home. Oh. And it's our first matrimonial home.
Yeah.
So she walks in, and she's just glowing. And I looked around. I was like, oh my God. So I take out my phone, and I'm like, baby, I'm so sorry, but I got to start taking a video and some pictures, because this is brutal. They hadn't even painted it. Like doors weren't installed.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And you're in prep.
I'm in prep.
In prep. Well, both of you are.
Both of us
are in prep at this time. And you're, how many weeks were you now?
I was when we moved in, I think we was 12 weeks out.
12 weeks out, yeah.
So 4 weeks of me literally, I'm super calm like Ian, but at some point, like I had to get vulgar, because I'm like, there's people in my house, they come in 5 or 6 times, not fix anything. Anyways, nightmare. So I like 8 weeks, I remember my wife was in the kitchen, and I looked at her, and she's just like blank. And I'm like, are you okay? And then she just starts bawling. And I was like, and I'm dealing, this is my first prep.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of having like an Ian moment. And we had just gone through her first show, and I had dealt with it. And in my mind, I almost told myself my wife would do the same thing, right? But it's not the same.
No.
Right? So I almost had projected this expectation onto her that she'd be fine. And this was her first dealing, like, I think Ian and I are very similar in character. It's like we're very emotional and we speak. And I was shutting off, and I was bitter about the house. So I just remember looking at her, and I was like, do you need me to pull out of the show? And she's like, no. But you know when a woman says no, like, let's be real. No. I'm just waiting for it. Nailed it.
We know that YouTube is going to censor this. So. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is part 1 of our 2-part series. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow, share, like, tell everybody about us. Noble Conversations. Till next time.